It's not peer reviewed, but I love you.
Yeah,
But and I don't want to, and you can't tell somebody they're feeling, and the world is so messed up that to feel there is there is something wrong out there, and we're not getting all the information, and we're out of control, and because things are psycho and weird and messed up right now, and
yeah.
that's, I'm here on Dystopia Tonight to tell you that the world has issues.
Dystopia Tonight. Dystopia Tonight.
Hey,
How you doing?
good man. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Great.
Yeah, it's a lovely day. I sneeze when I have that thing. I used to know the word for it, but it's like when the sun makes you sneeze.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
bright days, I walk out and I have these like
Really?
insane sneezing fits. Yeah.
Wow,
And
that's
once
really
again, everybody looks. I did one today at the dog park, and everybody looked at me sideways.
Oh yeah. It never fails, man. It's always at the most inopportune time. I could go the entire day without sneezing, coughing, and whenever I have to be in a public situation, I'm like, I can't breathe. I need to make all these involuntary sounds, and I know everyone's just gonna turn around and be like, "This fucking guy."
Yeah,
It's gonna be
it's the
great.
two old ladies with their Pomeranian. And
Yeah.
anyways, yeah.
Yeah. Basically. What was it? You were doing a 2020 tour, right? With Bare Naked Ladies. I should just end it there and be like, explain yourself. Bare Naked Ladies. And
Gin Blossom.
Gin Blossoms. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then was it before COVID hit? Like, what did you get to go out and do it?
It was before COVID. We didn't. We're doing it this summer. They called it the
Nice.
last summer on Earth,
wow.
which ended up being more
Foreshadowing.
dystopia,
Yeah.
foreshadowing. And so it was delayed twice. And this summer, I mean, we'll see. Unless we're a nuclear wasteland, it will happen this summer.
Yeah.
So
Where my friends and I are super excited. There's been this like just rush of 90s nostalgia. I don't know if you guys feel the same way too, but like we're all of a sudden like all that stuff is coming back full force, which makes me excited, me and my friends excited because that's our like age group.
yes, well, we're of course enjoying it just because just every set of years we get a little bump again. You
Yeah.
know, so I feel like musical careers, they're not airplanes, they're gliders. They're like hang gliders. So you're always technically falling, but every once in a while you get a thermal. And so
That's pretty
we're in a
great.
thermal state right now.
Yeah. Do you guys, how does that something like that come together? I'm like, did you all know each other from back in the day? Do you all kind of have like the same agent and that's who gets you together? Like, or are you guys like, we miss each other, let's go on tour?
No, we've been hoping. I mean, Bare Naked Ladies if you haven't seen them live, they're an
I
incredible
have.
live band.
Yeah.
And they're one of the bands from the era close to in our group that we've never toured with, but they also
Oh,
they still pull like a really great audience, and
yeah.
so thermals, but they they just for years I think it had been kind of we'd been hoping to get a tour with them at some point. It just kind of finally came through. So
Nice.
yeah, we've been really happy with it. And we early on, Gin Blossoms toured. I think one of their first national tours when New Miserable Experience came out.
Oh, nice.
They were opening for us, so we've known those guys for a really long time.
Oh, that's
So
awesome. So that's cool because you guys all get to hang out as friends and stuff and go back out during the worst time in everyone's lives.
there you go. I mean, it's not that bad though. I mean, and actually just got to meet. I'd never met anyone except for Stephen Page, who's no longer in Bare Naked Ladies. I did
Right.
a tour in Canada with him, and so actually, sorry, it was with a Canadian ensemble, but it was mostly in the States. In any
Okay.
event, it was like a string. It was called The Art of Time, and they're like a 8 to 10 piece string outfit, and they were doing these Sergeant Pepper's arrangements.
Oh,
And so there were
nice.
4 singers, and we got to sing all these Sergeant Peppered songs with these kind of amazing orchestral arrangements. It was so fun.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
But I'd never met the rest of the guys in Bare Naked Ladies before, so we got to meet them. Actually, just played a show recently, got to meet them all, and so I'm really looking forward to
That's really cool. First time I
Yeah.
saw them was right before the pandemic. I went to see Hootie and the Blowfish
Mhm.
at MSG, and Bare Naked Ladies opened, and they had this hilarious story about NSYNC. And do you know this one?
No.
Okay. So basically they were doing like this Christmas festival thing or something like that, and they were the headliners. Like everybody gets to do it at MSG. They were talking about last time they were there, and NSYNC was like the new band. And so when they were like kids, they were coming up to them and they were like, "Oh my god, we're really excited to open for you guys." Like, blah, 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 like couldn't wait or whatever. And then that year passed, and like a couple years went by, and NSYNC had blown up. It was Justin Timberlake and all this stuff. So then they went to the same festival, same Christmas thing, and it was reversed. And so NSYNC was headlining, Bare Naked Ladies was there or whatever. And then Bare Naked Ladies gets off stage, and they said that Justin was just in the back, and he just went, "Solid, guys, solid." And he was like, "Dude, come on, like, what are you doing right now?" And then throughout the rest of the set, he just kept, every time they did a song, he just look at everybody and go, solid, guys. It was pretty great.
Thank you for telling me that. I'm going to use that while we're out.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm so glad.
It'll be
that
great.
makes me so happy.
The best suggestion Ed had during we just actually I met them at Hootie Fest in Cancun, and
Nice.
during their set they were talking about freedom of speech, COVID misinformation, and they were kind of saying that anything that's a conspiracy theory, QAnon related, deliberate misinformation, you should have the right to say it, but there should be it should automatically appear in Comic Sans font.
That's genius.
Just you wouldn't need to do much else.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody hates it and nobody takes it seriously. We've been talking to a lot of people about that on here. Do you have any? I mean, it was kind of like a line drawn in the sand sort of thing, but it felt like it was basically just common sense, like Neil Young and all those artists pulling out of Spotify and stuff. Did you have any like feeling either way about it?
I mean, Spotify is evil for so many other reasons.
Yeah.
So it's like starting there. It's like, whichever.
Right.
The deliberate misinformation. I don't know exactly how you go about it. I mean, these are, it's. I don't know the answers. It bothers me, and a lot of people I love. I have had to fight. In the last few years, one of the hardest things for me has been walking around angry all the time and finding myself thinking in a binary way. And that even if I know people are wrong, like I just saw friends of mine, their parents are total Trumpies. They are two of the sweetest people I have ever met. And I think they are wrong about just about everything.
Right.
And I absolutely adore them. And in my own Santa Barbara bubble, it's very self-reinforcing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not my yoga bubble. My yoga bubble is more, but the, and so it's been easy for me to be in a bubble and not have to kind of, I don't know, redevelop the ability to speak in a civil and respectful way with people I deeply disagree with.
Yeah.
And I don't have a huge, I can't have a huge issue about the people who are listening to, Robert Malone and not doing their fact checking and going like, yeah, he was one of 1,000 different scientists who had patents of mRNA.
Right.
His was for stuff that didn't work. And, you gotta, I feel not, I don't trust anybody who overinflates themselves. He's the kind of guy who will not say like, well, I was talking to a doctor from Chile, worked in the National Health Department. We, say a name, say who they work for. Chile called me to ask about how to implement their COVID protocols, and they didn't listen to me. But if they had, it would have saved 9 million lives. It's one of those things of like this self-aggrandizement and also the like the bitterness and this feeling that he's a genius who never got his due, and so like. These are all to me like big major red flags.
Yeah,
And Rogan's breathless listening to every conspiracy theory and doubling down on it, and it's all the giant they, really, really bugs me.
yeah, me too.
I get angry with him because he has such a huge platform, and I feel he uses it very poorly. I can't have the same feelings for those who listen to him and take it at face value. I wish they would vet more.
Right.
But he is at this point a news outlet, and people are used to believing what they hear on the internet. And so I put the responsibility with Rogan.
Yeah.
And if you have that many people listening to you, I don't know. It makes me sad.
Yeah, no, I completely, no, I completely agree. I mean, it is one of those things that's hard to kind of reconcile, especially when you're talking about it with other people who either, because you have the kind of feeling that like, yeah, okay, if Rogan wasn't around, they'd probably still get it from somewhere. You know what I mean? Misinformation is readily available. So you're like, that's a problem. But the fact of the matter is that Rogan has, I mean, 11 million views per episode, and then 2 a week, times how many he does a month, that's like 90 million. You know what I mean? That's a vast audience to have that much responsibility.
Absolutely. And the misinformation, I think, fits a lot of narratives that are, sometimes even narratives that I'm how can I say, sympathetic to, when people are talking about, like Gaia theory and the earth being one big thing, and that, this idea. And I'm like, yeah, I'm totally down with that. But I also think viruses are real. My parents were scientists, and to say germ theory doesn't exist is shocking to me. It's
right.
like
That's what I was going to say. For
flat.
you, it's got to be even doubly hard to process that kind of cognitive dissonance coming from, the family you're in,
But I also, am willing to go into like, yes, this planet is a giant living God. We are one organism, all DNA, even if you go back to the mitochondrial event, right? All fungus, all plants, like they share a common mitochondria. It's amazing. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's mystical even, but it doesn't mean that germ theory doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Or
and there's
that
stuff
germs don't exist, or illness doesn't exist.
It's weird because it's funny because you can get these, you can find common ground with people like that too. And it's just all in the framing of it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's one thing where like people who listen to Rogan are like, what do you don't like free speech or open conversation or, discourse? And it's like, no, I love all of that stuff. I just think the framing of it is very, very dangerous and weird. And it's never just like, hey, we're just trying to figure this stuff out. It comes across as, it's one of those things, if you have somebody on who says something kind of batshit crazy, right? And they're your guest and you're trying to be polite and you kind of go with it. It's another thing if every episode afterward you reinforce that batshit crazy theory instead of going like, let me course correct it. We had some people fact check it, or, we looked into it the next epised. It just seems to build.
And
then
I
it
think
gets
the
out of
fact
hand.
checking is good. And unfortunately, the fact checkers are really dry people who aren't selling a big narrative. They're just going, well, I read all the papers and this was a preprint and it was pulled back as a preprint. The ivermectin study in Brazil.
Yeah.
Yes, there was a preprint. The preprint was pulled back because it was a bad study. It's
right.
Peer review and the people talking about that, they're just not exciting.
No.
And it's more exciting to think there's mass formation psychosis and everybody who thinks one thing is they're all crazy and we're the smart people who have that.
Yeah.
And I get the appeal to all of this, and I get, there's, I don't know, the whole thing makes me really sad. And once again, and I have kept my dear friendships with people I really love who are on what I consider to be some of the wrong sides of some of this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're fucking smart people, and they're wonderful, good, kind people. And so, hopefully in this next year with Omicron, we'll get to the other side of this where it's not the only subject. And I don't want to, like shame or piss. I know my friends, once again, they are smart, good people. And I'm one of the only, weird people on what they see as the overcautious that they can talk to about it and have a conversation where we don't start yelling at each other.
Right.
And we agree to disagree, and it's clear we still love each other. And I want to be that guy who's not, I'm not going to I'm going to
Same.
listen respectfully. If they send me stuff, I'm going to read the papers they go, and then I'll come back and go, yeah, that was a preprint. It's not peer reviewed, but I love you.
Yeah.
But, and I don't want to, and you can't tell somebody they're feeling, and the world is so messed up that to feel there is there is something wrong out there, and we're not getting all the information, and we're out of control, and things are psycho and weird and messed up right now.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm here on Dystopia Tonight to tell you that the world has issues, but and so to respect the people I love for where they've come to, and even try to respect, a lot of their reasoning and where they got there. And I also have friends who lost their faith in the medical establishment at great personal cost, like at horrendous, the worst costs you can imagine of losing people they loved. And I can see, I don't understand sometimes why they've placed their trust in the place where they put their trust. Seems to me to be casual compared to how hard it was for them to lose their trust. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
But
Great way to put it too.
But I really understand why they lost their trust, and that I can't argue with, because, so it's messy.
No, it totally is, and I think everybody can sympathize with that too, because we all have people on different sides of the aisle, whether they're your family. The weird thing to me is, and it took me a little bit to understand this too, but because of social media sometimes, and the way we kind of interact with either celebrities or politicians, we have almost immediate, easy access. We kind of see everybody as having a quote unquote platform. But the weirdest thing is when you're arguing with a relative who's like 75 on Facebook, you're like, they don't have a platform. They're just they're just poking you on Facebook and having really bizarre opinions, but you don't have to treat them like they are running for office. And that's a really hard thing, I think, for people to kind of wrap their head around.
And not getting caught up in the arguments. I mean, I've had talks, my brother, God, he's smart. He'll get in, with people doing a conspiracy, and he will just get all the research, get all the facts, do this. He will get really involved in these big internet arguments, and it just wears him out and breaks his heart. And like, have had this conversation with him a few times. It's like, this is war games, Dan. The only way to win is not to play.
I had to learn that too.
Don't pick up the bait. You will debate. You will never ever win an argument on Facebook with anybody. And I don't do. I mean, my relationship with social media now is like, I have a show coming up, and I will put that I have a show coming up. I do live streams, and if I'm on the road and I see something like an amusingly misspelled sign, I'll take a picture of it and put that on Instagram. And I, very consciously, like my personal life, my dog signed a waiver. And so my dog will show up in live casts and stuff. And it's like totally cool. Nobody else in my personal life, unless they really want to, is ever going to be exposed in that way. And I'm maintaining their privacy for their. So social media is awful.
It's totally awful, and I've been doing stand up for 16 years, so you're pre-programmed when you get in there to get everything out there. Like, I wish I had just done I have a show, come see it, instead of like joke, opinion. You know what I mean? Because then everybody kind of piles on. But I did take a picture of a weird sign the other day. I got to send this to you. It's a Dairy Queen's. Like, clearly it was old and somebody had scraped it off, but it just said Dairy Queen. Nuts may come in contact with your product. Please be aware. I cry laughed, I think, for like 5 minutes straight. I took a photo of it. I haven't posted it yet, but it was beautiful.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I'm a 12-year-old boy.
And so wait, are you a comedian then who does, I'm assuming is there a comedian in the world who doesn't tweet?
There probably should be, but I tweet, I post on social media. Instagram is where I post a lot, which is so kind of what a weird thing. Like, I was heavy into tweeting when it started. You got a lot of crap out of tweeting because you literally, when Twitter started, I got writing gigs out of tweeting. You know what I mean? So it was like a thing you had to do. And then, Twitter's like the way it is now, but Instagram seems somewhat safer. But all I do is screenshot stuff I say on Twitter and then post it to Instagram and then get hate that way. Or depending on what it is. I had a guy who, this is the first time I've ever really done it and it worked. And I thought, I'm going to keep doing this. And it blew up in my face. But I had a guy who was like hating on me for some political thing over COVID, whatever it was. But it was like a weird, like, not just like that one post, he started like randomly commenting on a bunch of stuff. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do what no one else does. I'm going to have a conversation. So I like DM'd him and I was like, hey man, how you doing? Are you okay? What's going on? And surprisingly, he was like, no, I'm not okay, actually. And then like he started to talk to me and we had this great long conversation. He was like, dude, like, thank you so much. Like, I don't have no idea why I was doing what I was doing. I was like, dude, it's fucking weird times, man. Everyone's stressed. And then I was like, that was really great. I'm going to keep doing that. And then something happened like that again. And I was like, I'm going to DM this guy. And that person was legitimately a psycho. And I never did it again. I pulled back from that so quick. Like, I'm just going to say that was a one-off and leave it at that.
It's great when it works. It's great when it works. I've had some experiences. I was reaching out. I got to a point during lockdown where I saw, I described it before, but I was like, my partner, we're walking into a store and this, lady looked like probably late 60s or something. She had a mask on and, looked at us with these like beatific smiling eyes, but she had a Trump mask. And I suddenly was like, oh, I want to say something. And I was like, oh my God, I am exactly what I hate. I am a judgy prick and I don't want to be a judgy prick. Like,
right.
And so started trying to like reach out and talk to people and just try to figure out like, okay, how do I break this us and them? And I put out, it's like, hey, if there's any conservative, because I lost half of my audience by speaking my mind, like at least half my audience. I was pretty vocal during Black Lives Matter. I was pretty,
Same.
It's like, I mean, frankly, even today, we reposted the band. It's, we have a social media person. It's like, should we do anything this week? It's like, no, we shouldn't do anything. And then I saw the Sting version of, Russians. And I was like,
yeah.
oh God, I like cried listening to it. I'm like, oh, we should post that. And immediately there's somebody, Putin is protecting himself from NATO aggression. And it's like, oh my God, people are carrying water for Putin. I forgot that people, like you can't say anything. And there weren't a whole lot of comments, but the biggest, longest comment. And then with, it's probably going to turn into a shitstorm in the comments below as it does. It's, it's like, we can't have nice things.
I tweeted something that I knew I shouldn't have at the time. But did it anyway. Because, you have that impetus where you're like, oh, I'm going to say something. But I was like, I can't really blame Republicans for being confused about, the whole Russian-Ukrainian thing, because this is the first time they're actually seeing a country defend its capital instead of attacking it. Ooh. And and I was like, that's hilarious and clever. And then my phone was like, bing, 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 bing. You know what I mean? I was just like, was it worth it? You dumb person. Was it worth it?
And I guess that's the thing for me is it worth it? Like, there's some of it, it shows up in the songs. It's strange that people, who've listened to my music for a long time think I'm, conservative or, but, or, why are you talking about politics? It's like, have you ever listened to our records? Like,
right. Yeah, I know.
Okay. Or our history, but it used to be, we would do the benefits we did and support, we took Amnesty International out on the road with us and RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest. Now, we're working for what I hope are universal causes, but are often portrayed as progressive causes. But we didn't have the comments and we didn't have social media. And if somebody showed up at a show and they thought like, Amnesty International, never going to see these guys again, fine. We wouldn't hear from them. They just disappear.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be, this kind of reiterative, I can't talk, aggression, like just coming back in waves and the trolling, it's just, if you didn't like it, you might shrug it off and just go, well, their music's pretty good. I'll go back, but it's this thing of both the expectation that we post constantly because you got to feed the algorithm.
Yep.
And so you're trying to feed the algorithm. And then in the meantime, you can't actually say anything. You have to constantly talk, but you can't say anything worth saying because anything worth saying is going to start a massive argument.
Absolutely.
And so at a personal level, I've just kind of stopped and I do the live streams and I'm trying not to live in the comments and trying to figure out how to use these tools in a way that feels honest and productive to me. And I mean, that's what I did, aside from all the times I got caught up in it, which was a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
I just started doing live streams and, making them benefits during, I don't know. I tried to stay out and I kept getting caught in the crap of it. But
Yeah.
recently I've done a much better job and I am a happier person.
Good. Yeah, I
Yes.
feel that too, man. It's weird when you want to step back and not do anything, you feel somewhat guilty. But the funny thing is like it's for your own mental health and stuff too. Like there was a point I think we were all like the BLM stuff and everything that was going on at that point. Everyone was posting constantly, and I felt the need to do the same thing. Get
Mhm.
anybody's message out I possibly could. Use the follower base that I had to like keep people, abreast, I guess, of whatever situation was going on. But then I found I had like linked up with like someone, like-minded, some giant account or whatever it was. And then I found out they were kind of profiting in a weird way off of like,
Mm.
posts or like sharing, like they were kind of curating material in a way. And then also like,
Mhm.
but then branding, putting it on like shirts and stuff, selling stuff. And man, I felt so like sick about
Mhm.
that kind of thing because I was just like, that is not what they were like sharing my post too, and then I saw it on like some product stuff, and I was like, this is not what I signed up. I don't know what's going on, but it made me feel like shit because I was like, oh man, everyone's just trying to capitalize, and it
Yeah.
kind of fucked me up for a little bit.
And we're all gonna be wrong. And there are moments where you're swept up. And one of the big, one of the places where, once again, I would say the same people who roundly criticize the left for these things don't criticize the right for it because the right, but
Yeah,
it's worth criticizing on both sides. And we weren't getting the criticism from the left, but some of the criticism of you're just bandwagoning. Everybody's
yeah,
putting up a black square. You put up a black square. You reposted Quincy Jones's. Like our management put up, it was like the Quincy Jones. We are the gatekeepers of culture. We're not the gatekeepers. And like people are like, "Fuck you, Toad," and like, why did we repost that? That's not us. And so like some really embarrassing moments and embarrassing getting called on like screw you in your black square. You're just jumping on board trying to look woke and cool and having to
right.
there are those moments, but it's this you get swept up in that moment and then trying to find your own voice. And once again that combination of my posts, I have no management, I have no social media person. I'm me. I have a booking agent, and that's it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, uh, my solo pages, the reason they're so algorithmically poor, and the reason there's nothing on them, it's just me doing whatever I do whenever I do it. And Toad, we have a person and she's good at her job, but like
Hmm.
that job is feeding the algorithm,
Yeah.
and so you always have to have new content, and it's just and
Yeah.
it is embarrassing. And when it gets wrapped up in politics or trying to talk about something worthwhile, it gets ugly and feels wrong very quickly.
Yes.
And so, in the stepping back from that, I don't know. I don't know how to do any of this stuff in a way that makes any sense.
No, I mean, and also the assumption that if you don't, you're just terrible. Like people really take that stance of, oh, you haven't done anything or said anything in a while on social media. You
Then you
must
don't
be
care.
working for. Yeah, exactly. And you're like, I do. I'm just trying to live and figure shit out on my own too, quietly at first. Like
But especially during that time, like I had people because me personally, like run very apolitical. I try not to show everybody what, like wherever I stand. And I had gotten private messages saying that silence is saying a lot to people that need you to hear them. So then I'm like, oh, now I got to come up with something. So it becomes like it's a catch-22, right? So if you
Hmm.
try not to say the wrong thing, it's almost taken as poor because they don't want you to be silent.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, there is I do think there is a responsibility, which I often fail at in being any kind of a public figure. And,
Mm.
I'm about as minor a public figure as it gets, but there's people who, there are people who tune in. It's a few hundred people, but they're,
yeah,
Absolutely.
they're there.
yep,
And
Absolutely.
so there is a responsibility in that for me not to misinform for people, for me to be not bigger than myself, but at least honest about my failings and that I'm trying to figure out truth and have to question myself a few times about what's worth saying or what's worth putting out there. Am I just
Yeah.
being reactionary? And I keep coming back, it's like, at the end of the day, damn it, Bob Marley's right. Right. It's just love. It has to be about love, compassion. And
Yeah.
I would rather be, um, you know, I would rather be wrong and find out about it and be able to correct it than
Yeah.
feel like I have to rigidly pretend I'm right all the time. But
Yeah.
I also know there's things I'm going to be rigid about. And even, when talking to people, about personal freedoms or this and that, and really wanting to listen to their grievances about that and, and have to go, it's like, well, I'm just of a mind personally. It's like, it's not for me to decide who gets to live and die, but if I have a choice, I'd rather help decide that more people get to live than get to die. And yes, I know the earth is overpopulated, and I know I'm a hypocrite by saying I want to save lives, because I also think the world is overpopulated, and that's like the root of so many of the problems of, resource management and everything else.
Mhm.
But I'm not going to be the executioner.
Right.
And
What you're saying is you'd still stop Thanos from doing the snap, basically.
I would still stop Thanos.
That's all we
yes.
need to know is, are you an Avenger?
Yeah.
That's what we're here to find out. And which
would still
Avenger would you be?
Oh God, I'm less of an adventurer. I'm more of like a mystery man. Honestly, like Mr. Fury, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Ben
great.
Stiller, whose superpower was impotent rage. That's me.
That's
I get really angry, but it doesn't change anything.
That just made me so happy that no one ever references Mystery Men. That's a great movie.
It is a flawed movie, but it's fucking brilliant. It's
Yeah.
so. Oh God, invisible, but you're only invisible when
Oh,
nobody's looking at you.
I
It's
know.
like everybody's superpower is self-defeating.
Yeah, it's so great. Especially
Yeah.
I feel like that's the
Fork
appropriate
you.
movie. Yeah, fork.
It's it's so good.
Oh man. Well, so when you were talking about the live streams earlier before too. Was that something that you embraced early on? Because I know some people had different feelings about it, where they're like, "Fuck, I don't really want to go and have to do live stream stuff. Like, I want to go back on the road." Is your connection more with live audiences, or were you still able to kind of make that connection doing the live streams with your fans?
I had been at that time for 8 years or something. I mean, it's been 10 years now since probably my first Stage It. So I'd
Mhm.
been doing live streams.
Okay.
I'd been using Stage It, and I'd been doing shows on Stage It for years. And um, when it first shut down, I was like, oh, I guess I'll do some Stage Its. I'll start on that. And then I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, live streaming's a thing now. Like, we have fast internet and the world is modernized.
Right.
And so I decided I'd do Facebook streams, and then I found out, and I think the first few weeks I thought it was only going to be a month, so I was like, I'll do 5 a week, and then I found there that you could the donate button on Facebook, and that I like, oh, I can go online and I can make it make it a fundraiser, and so like,
Mhm.
oh, cool, I'll do fundraisers, and then I switched it to 3 a week, and then it kept going on. And a few people wrote in, it's like, hey, can I send you a tip or something? So at some point,
Oh, nice.
I was doing Stage It, which is, where people tip and they take a percentage, but it's like set up for the artist to make money. And at some point, people were asking, on Facebook, can I send you a tip? So I would do the benefit. And at the bottom, I would just say, like, if you want to tip me, here's my Venmo, here's my PayPal. So there
Mhm.
wouldn't be a paywall. And the focus was always on fundraising. And, I mostly forgot to mention like the tipping thing. And so it ended up, I was doing 3 of those a week,
Mhm.
three of the live streams. And then I would do Sundays were Stage It, and Tuesdays I've been doing community choir leading in Santa Barbara, and we couldn't do that anymore because it's like a non-performance choir where you get
Nice.
together for an hour and a half, and it's just like kind of like spiritual songs, but like uplifting songs that we sing with each other,
Oh, cool.
and it's never performance oriented, and
Mhm.
I've really
Nice.
loved doing that. And so I would do that with a looper on Tuesdays, and I would just stand in front of the computer and I'd sing the songs and I'd loop all the harmonies,
Oh,
and
that's
people would
awesome.
sing along at home, and we do that on Zoom. And so I was 5 nights a week doing shows of some kind.
Wow.
And driving my now fiance, her son, poor guy had to listen to me like singing these songs to myself, where you couldn't even hear all the parts. Or if I'd play electric guitar, it's like me just going, rah, rah, with poor kid had to listen to 5 nights a week of me, doing that. But it ended up being a really lovely thing. And people started sending me in suggestions for nonprofits. We did a lot of it was food kitchens. A lot of it was
Nice.
hunger stuff. And so just started doing, 3 benefits a week, and also creating a thing where it was just, it felt natural instead of, there are all these opportunities to do stars or paywalls or ads.
Right.
Or, it's like you're supposed to add all this bling. And I just figured I wanted my live streams to be a place where it was kind of community friendly, and where it was, I don't know, like an unstructured, where it wasn't an economy.
Yeah.
Because everything was being monetized. And so a really beautiful community came out of it. I mean, there's, at least 2 couples that came out of it. One couple's engaged now, they're getting married,
Wow.
like, who met in the chats, and people would check in on each other. Like, if they were going through chemo, if their kid was having trouble, like, they started becoming a community and really supporting each other. And when I've done shows since then, they're showing up, and like they know each other from online, and they're meeting in person, and it's been a really beautiful thing. And
awesome.
it ended up being, I loved that they were able to get together, and I on top of it, I ended up getting through the year. We ended up raising a lot of money for a lot of charities, and I didn't have to take assistance because the community supported me and supported me. Just, and some people gave a lot, some people were there and couldn't give anything. And getting to feel that support too, of how much people value music, because especially as a musician, you're kind of, these days, it feels very unvalued, right?
Oh yeah.
Music's at the end of the chain. It's like, hey, we're making a film, like, we'd love to have your song in it. Can't pay anything. Everybody else got paid, but the music, you can have the exposure.
Yeah, sure.
And so, it was really wonderful to have this group of people and feel so deeply supported by them. And, I have they gave me, sent me like a yearbook for my birthday of pictures of all of them, and,
Wow.
thank you notes, and like, just these amazing and generous people. They got me through the year. They got each other through the year, and we did a lot of good for other people in the middle of it. And so it felt, it really kept me, from going off the deep end. And they would probably tell you too, depending on the weeks. Some weeks I was really solid, and I felt like, my higher self was in control. And then if I'd start drinking again, or if I'd start, I would go through my own process, or I'd, let somebody shit talking in the comments get under my skin, and I'd lose it. And they were and it was 3 days a week. So there's no filter. And I was going through the same up and downs as they were. And
the weird thing about that too is you literally are in front of you do shows like when I was touring
to myself in front.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh yeah. No, it was like, it's weird when you're doing like, when you're touring and you're doing shows or whatever, you do them on the weekdays or like sporadically during the week. So people see you in that moment or whatever, and then that's it. And you're kind of gearing up for those trips. When you're starting to do stuff like this, it's so weird. I feel like I can map out my level of depression and how well I was eating and everything else just by watching either episodes of this, or anytime I did a Zoom stand-up, I was like, oh, you're a little heavy there, and you're clearly having shout. You know what I mean? Like I was like, oh, I was really fucked up then. Yeah. And you're like,
and people would write, even though I try to hide it, I get people writing me on Facebook going, are you okay right now? You seem,
yeah.
I'm losing it.
I'm looking too good. And you're like, no,
I
don't feel too good. Yeah, absolutely.
All lost it.
In the very beginning, I don't know what, because we all thought it was going to be like, what, 3 weeks max or whatever the hell it is. So in the very beginning, I was like treating it like just a extra vacation. I was like, I'm going to bike every day. It was in March too. So it was starting to be springtime. So I was like really good, getting in really good shape. Cut to
Did you make sourdough?
I did. No, I made banana bread. Banana bread.
Okay, that's good.
And my friends made pizza. And there were stages of it that I didn't get into. I didn't get into the pizza making stage, but they made their own pizza. They were getting all into it. It's funny. Do you know Tom Papa? Okay, he's a comic who makes bread. It's like his passion. That's
his podcast.
His podcast is called
Nice.
Breaking Bread with Papa. And Tom Papa, he's a hilarious comic. But when we made the banana bread, I sent him a picture of the bread. When he responded like toot sweet, like what's it look? Did you burn the bottom? And I was like, flipping it. I'm like flipping over the own bread. I'm like, I don't know if we burned the bottom, but he was just really into it. But yeah, did that, got in like somewhat, stayed pretty healthy, whatever, and then cut to like winter time to where I didn't even want to like slice my own cheese. I just ripped open the package and fisted crackers and was like eating, and I was like, I'm not doing good here. It was like a weird, people drank, I ate. I think that's what I did.
So crazy. I feel like I feel like this gave us an outlet though to connect with people, like especially if you're used to live engagement and performing and needing to be fed. This allowed you to get, I think this, to me, I never podcasted before in my life before all of that happened. And then all of a sudden, and unlike you, John, I never thought it was 3 weeks, because I was doing a thing with a girl that we were doing peer-reviewed articles, and we were like, oh no, this is 2 years. Like, look at history. Like every 100 years this happens, and let's buckle in and we'll be okay. And it was so weird, man. I feel like we came out the other side. Well, now we're coming out the other side, and now exactly.
Yeah. Until Coachella hits, and then they make some new, whatever variant.
COVID-chella.
Yeah, COVID-chella. Exactly. That's gonna be. I really hope if something happens, I really hope they name it that, just out of spite. See, this is the terrible side where I'm like, just fucking do it. Yeah, we did we co-produced this. That was the thing though. You were talking about connection and stuff like that, which is crazy. We did this co-produced this charity event, and I'm made a bunch of phone calls and got a bunch of comedians in, and it was literally supposed to be you do your time and then you peace. But I didn't just took for granted that no one had seen each other or been inside a comedy club or, been out on the road. No one, we did a 93-hour stream, broke like a Guinness World Record. Yeah. And, but nobody left. People kept coming back in, and it would just wound up being all of us. And no one realized how much they needed it. People were like, are you guys still on? And like, everybody had the one link. So people kept popping in from all over different time zones.
Wow.
And it was really, really surreal and very nice. And we met a lot of people doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, people needed check-ins, and it felt good to also be able to, figure out like, what are your options? Like, as a comedian, if you're not Kevin Hart, if you're not making movies, if you don't get your series, if you don't like,
I wish.
but like, right, there are these things that can bump you up really quick, and so, I mean, and same in music, if you haven't had like whatever your cultural breakthrough of whatever type it is, getting this set of perfect placements or getting, these, whatever it may be, it's like, how do you just get by and have it work? And I think a lot of people, they've found little niches here that are really great. And I've taken my evenings back because, now that we're not working remotely, like, we don't see each other, and, we like to have our evenings be our evenings.
Oh yeah.
And, we got the dog, we're going out, we're watching the sunset, it's like,
Sure.
Living a life, but still trying to do when I'm home, at least, one broadcast a week. I'm going to start doing the singing circles in person again outside, which I
sweet.
just love.
Yeah.
I got to do a few in the summer before Delta hit, and it was so amazing to sing with people again. And like every gig I play is still like the level of gratitude for getting to do what I used to do is off the charts. And the gratitude for everything that else came up. And once again, I say this as one of the incredibly lucky ones who, I have my kids are, 26, 25, and 20. Each of them came back and lived with me for a while.
Nice.
Moved in with, my partner, and like, that, like, there are all these things that happened that might not have happened otherwise that I'm really deeply grateful for. And no one really close to me died. And,
nice.
And, no one really close to me. Well, no, it's not true. A couple people close to me had their lives kind of shattered, and
right.
And So not entirely true, but within the bubble of my life, I feel very, very grateful, and and so, um, but man, this is going to take a while, and
Yeah.
it's going to take a while to get over it, and especially I think for kids, just the development, in days where you're supposed to be with other kids and seeing faces and playing together, and
Oh yeah.
we're all we all have some complex PTSD, I think.
I was going to say our
So
friend is studying that right now and doing research
Yeah.
papers on like the level of trauma that people are that they don't even really know they're going through right now and what it's going to be like coming out of it and what they're going to have to do.
yeah,
It's going to be wild. And plus now, onset of war too. So why not just add that on top of it? It's fine. At least we're getting it all out of the way. I feel like that's what it is. They're just getting it all out of the way now. They're like, let's just, get this done with. It'll be fine. And we'll go
It's a
back
dystopic cleanse.
Yeah.
well, and there's a thing that for me at the very end of it, because I felt like in the last few months there's been a personal unwinding for me, like the parts of me that were hurt post-divorce or not wanting to engage fully in like that were kind of keeping life a little bit at distance.
Sure.
Eh, this will sound unrelated, but I talked about there's that thing of like, I'm sure you have a friend who had cancer, who survived, and they're just like eating life now. Like every
Right.
day's bonus. They're like inspiring. They're willing to take chances. They're willing to say yes to audacious things, or even non-audacious. They're just willing to be vulnerable and go like,
Mhm.
yeah, this could hurt, but I want to say yes. I don't want thing to, I don't want stuff to, I don't want to say no to anything. And
Right.
I'm fine if it might go wrong, like, because life is precious and it's very limited. And I feel like finally at the very end of these last couple months, I finally got that, like, oh, and there's a war starting. And of course, the environment's still, reading like new environmental, like, I can become a news junkie. It's one of the things I need to actually filter out for my own happiness, because
Yep.
most of it I can't do much about.
Yes.
I'll just sing my songs and say, we got to love each other. And kind of at some degree, the less news I have, probably the more productive I'll be in the only little things I can do, which is like palliative care for a dying species on a planet that, frankly, in 2 million years, Earth's fine. We will be a distant memory.
Yep.
And,
It's so true.
And so just getting that perspective and going like, I'm 51, like I don't have long to mess around, and I've always thought my dad died at 59, so I've always felt that I wouldn't make it to 60.
Right.
Like I've had that kind
Sure.
of like I got, and just to go like, oh, this is my moment. This is acting like a person who survived cancer. Like,
Yeah.
screw conditionality, start saying yes and get into it. And I finally like, we'll see if it lasts or not. Probably.
Yeah. And it is one of those things where
you got to keep. Well, this is why, as my therapist says, practice makes practice, right? Meditation, yoga, it's like, it's not like you get there and you go, oh, I'm cool, I'm enlightened, I'm good now.
Yeah.
I can stop working at it.
Right. It's constant.
It's
and you
constant.
slip. And that's what people
And
have
you
to,
slip.
you have to be okay with being able to go, yeah, I fucking slipped this week. And I dove back into old hat. I mean, there's times for me too, where I'm like, I know I feel happier when I'm not scrolling through Twitter at 3 a.m. and just reading about all the garbage shit I can't control and can't help and letting it, sit in my brain forever. I know it makes me feel better. And then every now and again, I slip right back into it. And I realize time has passed, the sun's risen, and I haven't solved anything. And I'm just tired now, and I got to start a day. And but it happens, and you got to be okay with it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we come, we go, but it's felt good to kind of come out of this going like, man, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And the shit will eventually hit the fan in some way. Like,
Sure.
I got, post-divorce really into grief as just a subject to study. I got into poetry, and David White has this great quote about how grief is the inevitable consequence of loving anything differently.
Yeah.
Loving anything, because anything you love will change.
Right.
The inevitable consequence of loving anything deeply. Because we don't like what we love to change too much.
Sure.
And it's going to die or it's going to grow up.
Hmm.
or you're gonna die, or it's gonna get
Yeah.
sick. Like some will change,
Yeah.
and so you can either just love less or just realize it's gonna hurt, and that if you can remember that the hurt is just because you loved,
Yeah.
then you're better off, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
That's a solid perspective, man, because I feel like everybody came out of this changing something, either about their career, their life. I mean, most people, it's kind of funny when you look at it, you can tell that they have not been alone with themselves or their own thoughts. Maybe however long they've been alive, maybe they just never had that opportunity, depending on,
Mhm.
what path they chose in life or whatever. But it is kind of funny because either I felt somewhat oddly okay with a lot of what was going on. Like I was able to compartmentalize and kind of deal, but that's because I'd spent a long time trying to figure out who I was beforehand. So like even doing stand up, you kind of get, but the same thing too, performing and being in this kind of business, you deal with rejection a lot. Sometimes it's isolation. Sometimes you feel like you're on your own.
Mhm.
So when all this kind of came back full swing, and also I've dealt with like varying degrees of depression over the years too. So when all this came about, they were like, "Hey, you can't see anybody. We don't know what's going to happen, and your career might be over." I was like, "I've been through this, and I've done it to
Yeah.
myself." and
Well,
at a
and there
certain
was a
point,
familiarity. Like I am such a, it's like, the reason I don't have enough in the bank to, like maybe I'll be able to retire something, like, is I wouldn't invest because I would always go like, no, 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 it's about to fall. This is a bubble. This is a bubble. Doomsday is coming. There's no way I'm putting my money in the stock market because the stock market is gonna crash, and then it would just keep going up and up and up. And like I'd be okay if I'd invested back in the day,
right?
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm pure doomsday all the time. And so
Hmm.
when this hit, when the pandemic hit, there was a part of me that went like, oh, okay, I knew this was, I knew
Yes,
it,
absolutely.
and like it lasted a few months, but it was
Mm.
actually relaxing. It's like we're here at the end of the world. I
Yeah,
knew this was like I felt relaxed actually into
me
it
too.
and calm.
And I felt a little guilty about feeling a little relaxed. There were times where like a couple close friends of mine were freak. But you know what was cool is people were freaking out who had never dealt with like any level of depression or anything like that before, and they were calling they were like, "Hey, what do you do when
Expert advice.
Yeah, and I was like, "This is the moment I've been waiting for. Let me jump in here." you know, can't help anybody out with sports shit. Can't help anybody out with anything. I can't build. I'm not any of those people. But I was like, "Let me tell you how to deal with your own thoughts."
Hmm.
But it was weird, man.
How do I deal with my own thoughts?
I know. I wish
You
he
know
could
what?
tell me that. I've been
If
with
you,
him for 130 episodes.
it's I've got a Patreon. No, I'm just kidding. You can join that. No, we don't have any of that. But it is.
No, you have a master class.
Yeah, I have
Yes.
I'm wearing a sweater in it. I'm very professional. The hair is tied back into a ponytail. It's good times. We just lost a viewer. No, I'm just kidding. They were like, "Fuck this guy." But I want to talk to you about your new album because I love the album. But I don't know. Was this pre-COVID you were working on it, or you worked on it during COVID? What was the whole process for that?
It was mostly written pre-COVID,
Hmm.
and or was it entirely written pre-COVID? I'm trying to think if there was like a last entry in there. Um, I had a bunch of songs. I'd started actually a solo record, and then I decided like I haven't had a Toad record in way like it'd be better to make a Toad record, uh, and so we went into the studio. I think in February we had like 3 days where we recorded basic tracks on things, and then there was shutdown, and we couldn't do any
Right.
more days, and uh, so we ended up finishing the record. Like this is why this room is here set up the way it is. It's like we would make tracks, and we all sent it in via Dropbox. Like we had basic
Nice.
stuff, and running Logic at home, like send it on Dropbox, and Michael, the producer, would just mix it and put it together. And so it was this game of telephone. And I changed lyrics. There were a few. There were a lot of subtleties in language, just becoming kind of more aware. Like it was a moving target of,
Mm.
there were a few songs that were specifically topical, and then like, oh, and this is really important, and then there'd be no, that's really important. And so there was a certain movement from things that were expressly topical to things that felt a little broader in scope, which I
Okay.
think ended up helping the record because and places where I had to really question my language. Looking at, am I acting like, there's a song called Truth that had a bunch of rewrites because it's like, because I kept realizing I have no handle on the truth any more than anybody does, and there were lines that felt a little finger pointy or
Right.
like I had something worked out that I don't have worked out, and I was trying to really be cognizant of that. So so it ended up getting edited because it felt like there was this moving target of shitstorminess that I didn't know where it was going to hit next, but there's an assumption. Have you ever read like Jonathan Lethem?
Yeah.
Did you read A Gun with Occasional Music?
Yes.
Because in that it's this dystopian future, and if you do something wrong, basically what happens is they freeze you until the future, and you'll get like a 10-year sentence, but basically what it means is you'll wake up in the future, but the future is guaranteed worse than now.
Yep.
Right. and I just felt like that's how things were going. Like, what's going to happen next? And it's going to be worse. So you couldn't be specific. It had to just be about like, how do I just keep my center ever, or even if I can't keep my center, allow myself to freak out and try to keep some tendril to like what actually matters, like what's actually important in the middle of this. And can I stay open? Can I stay loving? And even, definitions of hope. And I wish I could remember the author, Gillian Mason. I'm forgetting who it was, but she talks about, hope as opposed to optimism, that optimism is saying everything's going to be fine, so it's passive, and pessimism is the same to the negative, and that hope is like saying you have no idea what's going to come down the line, but you kind of have some idea of what the right thing to do in the moment might be.
Wow.
And that you do that.
Yeah.
You just invest in, following like your heart, following love, following the things that actually matter, because that's the only compass you have.
Sure.
And so, because it just felt like it was just going to keep coming down the line, and it's still like sometimes, these last 2 weeks with Ukraine and Putin, and just going, like, God, remember I was talking about it this morning, like of hearing Russians again, the Sting song, and like I grew up with that fear of nuclear war.
Yeah.
Like active, like Soviet Russia and nuclear war. And I hadn't felt that feeling of like, holy shit, the button could get pressed.
Yeah.
I had some of that fear in the Trump era, of course, but but it was this odd, somebody in another country being like, hey, by the way, remember, before you do anything, I'm going to take this as an act of war, and I have nukes. I am a country with GDP less than Italy, but I am a nuclear superpower, and I'm batshit crazy.
Yeah.
And like, I haven't had that, like, and it's like this old stress that's been living in my body that like suddenly started just going again.
Yeah.
And it was wild to feel that.
I know what you mean. We had, this might make you feel somewhat better, maybe a little bit, gave me a little bit of a peace of mind. We had a geopolitical analyst on the show earlier named Michael Hilliard. He's got a great podcast called the Red Line Podcast. He used to be a conflict journalist, and his main focus is in Russia, Ukraine, and stuff. And I asked him, I know.
I hear conflict journalists, and I think like Alex Jones.
Key difference is the real word journalist there. That's what we're focused on.
World and focusing on world conflict.
World
figuring it out now. Not just specializing in creating conflict.
Exactly. Good point though. That's not a bad way to do it. You gotta separate the two. So he was fascinating, great guy and super smart and everything. And I kind of just asked him, like, because there is all this talk, and I have a genuine fear, just the same way you do, of like this button could be pushed and people are eager to do it. And I was like, is that the case? Are people really eager to, like, is Putin as crazy about being like one step away from doing it as he is? And he kind of was like, Putin also doesn't want to, like, no one really wants to go to nuclear war. Like, believe me, like everyone is being as cautious and is very analytical about it. So that made me feel a little bit better, because he is kind of like, he's got a lot of people you know, close that are involved in this thing and the stuff that he has to go do. I think he's going out to where did he was going somewhere. Actually, yeah, he couldn't tell us where he was going, which is always makes me like a little on edge too. I'm like, why can't you tell us? He's like, not on air. Yeah, but he was very much like, look, that is really like no one's like that crazy. Like I know there's a lot of talk about it. Yeah, it is, and it's
Putin's
nice
got
to
to
know
be
that.
a piece of work right now. I mean, his humiliation, and as a narcissist and as somebody who can never be wrong, in so misunderstanding, how much resistance he was going to get, how ill prepared he was, how how brave. I think he just figured, so he's effeminate. He's just going to run.
Yep.
I put out a hit on him. He's going to run, and he did. It's like. It's so much. They pulled his black belt. I loved that the Taekwondo Association pulled his black belt.
That is hilarious.
Like,
that was so great.
But it's like this thing of like, I think he thought he was just going to be able to walk in and grab it, and just underestimated everything. And I hope it's the end of. I hope it is the end of his reign. And
me too.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And I hope he doesn't also, just as a fuck you, like leave the Ukraine as like a nuclear wasteland. I get scared of that he's just going to go, oh, by the way, on my way out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because he does seem that kind of like a vindictive kind of type of prick.
Yeah.
But I think you need 3 guys to press the button at once. So you need 3 fully vindictive pricks. It
is a big, heavy button. No, I just imagine like 3 guys haven't actually pressed down. That's because I'm a child.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of
Actually, in Russia, it's a lever. They have to pull it. You need a certain amount of mass.
Putin's got to ride his horse in the opposite direction. It's tied to the thing.
Yes.
I get it.
Shirtless.
That's
after he pulls the bear.
The ropes are tied to his nipple. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's how he has to pull it off. That's great. I'm sorry for the imagery, everybody, but if I have to live with it, so do you.
There are so many great questions.
Yeah, let's get to some of those.
So I definitely want to field some of them for you guys. So feel free to ask them. But I'm going to ask you a couple that keep popping on us. Glenn, is there a chance for a cover album? That's what they keep. I've seen that question so many times so far.
From me or the band, we've been talking about doing a covers album. We're going to have a live album come out before the summer tour, and we've been talking about a cover album. Yes,
that's awesome. So good question. Good question.
And I thought of doing one myself as well.
Nice. Yeah. Is there one song that you really, really want to cover that you haven't done yet? Like even on tour, like live, something that you were like thinking about doing?
Well, the band hasn't done. Dean suggested "What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding," which is just such a perfect song for right now. Nicola played it a few times acoustic and experimented with it, kind of ballady. It's nice, slow actually, because you're not gonna beat Elvis Costello in like the balls out version,
right?
So Pete Thomas just like that's great.
That's so great.
And I know also somebody was asking, will you give up a little bit of how the engagement went down? Because they went nuts over the engagement news. They weren't ready for it.
They were. It's private.
There you go. You can say that. You're allowed to say that.
I'm just gonna say I'll keep that for me and for us. But I'm really happy about it. Yeah,
congratulations, man.
Yeah, congratulations. I know when I got engaged, people didn't believe me that I got engaged because it wasn't on social media. Which I was like, maybe we just wanted to help.
Yeah, and people also, it's interesting. People want the story of the moment.
Yeah,
and like it's a narrative. Like, was there a mariachi band? Was there a rose petal cannon?
Right.
But it's it makes me very, very happy. It just feels good to say yes. If that makes sense, and to not put life on hold. It's so easy. I go into things get difficult, and I go like, it was part of it too. With it's like, okay, housing price in Santa Barbara through the roof. It's like, I'll probably never have a house here again. The environment, it's like, okay, so what's not on fire or like super volcano or crazy winter storms. What's going to have water in 20 years? It's like, frankly, if we are climate refugees in 15 years, I have a bigger fish to fry. Like I'll be really happy I didn't spend all my money. Not the dollar will have collapsed, but I'll be happy I didn't spend money on a house in Santa Barbara. It's like there's a certain, getting that idea. There's a book on Zen Buddhism called The Wisdom of No Escape.
Ooh.
And just that idea, it's like there was some switch I experienced of going like, okay, what do I really want? And this is a lucky position to be in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is to go, I want my day-to-day existence the way it is. I actually want exactly what I have. And I know that even the problems in my little personal sphere, yeah, not everything is perfect, but they're really workable problems. They're imperfections that are not based on like abuse or, like the problems that I have are lucky problems to have. And like the only thing I could improve is that if I woke up every morning and just said thank you instead of what if there's a more perfect place somewhere else. Like that's the only thing I can really improve in the real world. The better places are imaginary. And I'm like, oh, I'd have to have a completely new friend set. I'd have to learn Portuguese or something. It's like I would have all these things. There would be all this work that I don't want to do to make that the perfect place I'd imagine. And the fact is, I'm still going to be me, and I'm still going to be just as slack as I am.
Right.
And so, like, I finally, maybe it just made logical sense to me finally that the least effort would be to go like, I fucking love my life right now, and just stop imagining in some perfect place that's better, because there isn't one.
Yeah.
And you get to the old place, you get to the new place, and it becomes the old place, and you get to the new friends and they become the old friends, and they all happen to be human beings, so they're all weird, and and you're still Buckaroo Banzai, wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah,
I'm still me with whatever shit that I'm not willing to take care of. And it was just like, oh, all that perfect, it's only perfect because it's imaginary. And this is really good. And the main problem with it is that I'm not spending enough attention like showing up every day and actually appreciating it and being present. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but it's not bad for being a human being on planet Earth in 2022.
Yeah.
I
am envious of how healthy you are.
That was till later.
That was a as soon as this goes
it's not a permanent state. It's just...
I hear you, man. No, I know exactly, but I know exactly where you are, and it's beautiful. It's awesome.
I have serotonin issues.
Yeah,
but even with that,
you can take gummies.
But the experiment of anything, the alcohol experiment, it's like, if I ever drink more than almost never, bad thoughts become just get really sticky. They get very Velcro shaped. Like, if I don't drink, and it's these simple little things. Like, and I've tried this experiment so much because it's so nice to have a beer and I feel good for an hour, but then the next morning, all the shitty thoughts stick. And I'm not as enthused about going for a run, and so I might not go. And it's like this domino of, actual self-care, not self-care meaning pop the wine and watch The Bachelor. Self-care meaning like do things that require a little more effort that make it so that the bad thoughts just roll out of my brain more quickly. I still have all the bad thoughts. I'm wired for bad thoughts. I'm negatively inclined in so many ways. And so like my positivity and my attention to these details is based on the fact that I know I am negatively inclined. And that I have to cultivate, and I don't want to cultivate a bullshit, everything's going to be all right positivity. I can't stand that. I want to.
That's toxic in and of itself.
Yes.
But I'll give you the flip side to that coin. So I think I try to not like a bullshit toxic, everything's gonna be all right, but everything's gonna work out. Right? Like I feel like it might not be all right.
Yeah.
But it's like accepting what's gonna happen, right?
If I'm gonna share like the good dark humor that my fiance and I have together, it's like it's everything's gonna be all right, and then you'll die. And like even in this, like, we're gonna get married. I love you, honey. We're gonna do this. We're gonna say yes. We're gonna get married, and then we're gonna die. And
Yeah.
she's like, yes, then we're gonna die. And like we all held each other. Like,
I'm one of those bored people who I like to know what exactly. Like I have no like I don't like not knowing. If someone's like, look, I would much rather be the guy who knows the comet's coming than the guy who has no idea and it just winds up showing up. If they're like, you got 6 months, I'm like, great, I could do something with those 6 months. At least I know, or whatever it is. Like it sucks, but I'm very much like, whatever. Like that's why even like when we kind of figured out how long, about how long COVID's gonna last a lot longer. As soon as I knew it, I was like, it fucking sucks. It's gonna last a lot longer, but at least I know what I'm dealing with.
We gotta hang out sometime. Like a similar experience. I'm putting out a solo album later this year too. I did a solo album that'll come out in the fall, and
Nice.
I was up in Vancouver, and I've been having this weird thing where it's like hearing my heartbeat in my ear.
Ooh.
And I was like, that can't be good. And went to an audiologist, and he's like, yeah, I mean, it could be. Often it's a tumor. They're usually benign. and so I had this like, oh, I'm gonna die. Okay, maybe brain tumor, probably 2 years. And I'm a person who worries about the cancer. Like, I don't want to go to the doctor because I don't want to find out about the cancer. I'm sure I have. That's already like, and this thing of like, I went to the doctor and I just had this sudden like, oh, I probably have 2 years. I know exactly what I want to do. I'm not going to do I'm not going to do these things. I'm going to do these things. I'm going to have the best 2 years. It's going to be fucking awesome. And like, I liked having 2 years to, like, at least in that initial moment, it was like this weight off of me from wondering when I'll die and how I'll die and what I'll do with my life. And, I go to my therapist and it's like, I'm never going to have enough money to retire, but I'm going to die before retirement age anyway. So no matter what happens, it's wrong. And this was just like, oh man, 2 years to live. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Let's party.
Right. Bizarre, similar situation. So I had stomach problems for years. I probably still have them, but they've subsided and I'm like, hey, I'm in the clear. But like I had them for like a really long time. No one could figure out what it was. Went to a bunch of different doctors, put me on different medication. This one guy was a specialist and he was like, I'm going to send you for a bunch of tests. One of them, he sent me to a hematologist, and it didn't click right away why he was even sending me them, because they were like, your white blood cell content is really high. You have all this other shit. We don't know what it is. Sends me to a hematologist. They do the whole 11 vials of blood thing. Now I'm realizing they're obviously testing for some kind of cancer or whatever. So my brain's processing that. I'm initially really bummed out. And then they sent me like a pamphlet in the mail, which was kind of hilarious, by the way. It was like, so you might have, like, I didn't even know they sent pamphlets out. Yeah, so you're having cancer. And it was like, Captain America spins his chair around and leans in. I was like, oh, cool, a video. But like, yeah, that whole thing, didn't tell any of my friends, none of that shit going on. But I was just processing it and going like, I'm going to prepare for the world. Like, that's probably what it is. I've had these stomach problems forever. No one can explain it. They're sending me for these. This is clearly what it is. By the time I got to go back to the hematologist and he got to tell me that it wasn't it, he was like, hey, you're in the clear. I was so like non-responsive, where I swear he was kind of like looking at me like, kind of expected you to be happier, but okay. Because I was literally just like, oh, cool, I don't have it. So what is it? And I wasn't like, hey, I wasn't relieved, but I was just level. I was like, okay, so now that's done. And then I wound up telling my friends later, because one of them saw like I had it in my room, and I was like the pamphlet, and he's like, the fuck is this? And I was like, oh yeah, they thought I might have that or whatever. And he was like, you were gonna tell us? Just like,
you should have said, I've been meaning to give that to you.
Yeah.
I'm just passing these around. I'm going door to door now. It's a service I'm providing. Yeah, it was just, but yeah, we should hang out. That'd be great.
Yeah.
It's gonna get real dark real fast with all of us, I believe.
Oh, it's gonna be great. The darker the better.
Back when I was in my early 20s, I had a roommate, right? That got diagnosed with like the big one, right? So he got diagnosed with HIV. I freak out because we're roommates. Right. Like we know. Listen, nothing ever happened, but like little things. Like I read possible ways to catch it. When you sharing toothbrushes and razors was on it. So when you go in the bathroom and your toothbrush is wet, you're like, I haven't used this toothbrush recently. So you would like my head would freak out. Ran to a doctor because I'm a hypochondriac, And he's like, well, were you having sex with him? I'm like, no, I was not having sex with him, mate. He's like, then you have a very small chance of being this. But it was during the time of like it took 5 days for that test. I must have played My Way by Frank Sinatra a million times.
that's your I'm Gonna Die song.
I learned that day. So I'm going through life as if it's over.
Oh my God.
And my father had some great, like I was talking to him, I told him like the whole scenario. He's like, listen, we're all gonna die. He's like, he just happens to know a time frame that we don't. And I was like, well, that was a really enlightening but dark like revelation at that age, right?
Yeah.
It's a good one. It was like, yeah, okay, what do? I clear out the fucking storage space. Get rid of all the stuff that I'm never gonna need. Give stuff away. Get my will in order. Get the finance. Like, do some travel. Like, it was gonna be great.
Yeah.
Right. And should we all be living like that anyway? Like, shouldn't we embracing it like tomorrow's the end? That like almost anyway.
I mean, a bit. That's the weird. That's the odd like paradox in it, right? Is that like happiness, spiritual, the spiritual practices I'm drawn to are more about being present right now. All you have, past is an illusion. The future, well, the past is gone. The future is an illusion. So now is it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Now is it. And I've written so many songs paraphrasing that. There's nothing but like half the stuff I write these days is basically about this is it. And this is it. That's the no mistake where you are.
Do you have that same brain where like when you just sang that song and I swear to God the next 3 tracks from one of those albums that they used to sell on TV when I was a kid, you know what I mean? Where they would be like they would roll up and it's like what's that Life is a Highway, like all of a sudden all these other songs start playing and I'm like, oh my God, I know that.
I just do it's my Michael McDonald, like I go from there to I'll be there. I just go like the whole like one of my bucket list things, like part of the Toad record was that now there's a song that I wrote that has the Michael McDonald that I am on that fucking playlist.
Oh, that's great.
Awesome.
I can
That's
die.
so great. Mike McDonald.
But yeah, it's like all those practices come down to like it's the moment, and there's so much truth in that. And at the same time, there's like, well, there's the moment, but there's probably going to be tomorrow's moment. So it's good to know where there's clean water and have some food. And, it's like if you're going to have a moment tomorrow, there's a few things you may wish to take care of. And the balance of those, that's the weird paradox, right?
Yeah.
You only got the moment, but you gotta, you gotta figure something out. It's all indeterminate, but it's a good reason to have things, have things in order just in case.
For sure. Have you ever read the book by Thich Nhat Hanh, Pieces Every Step? I got to give that to John.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet either. Yeah.
Really good book. Like it was like at one point in my life, it was super crazy and all over the place where I was in my head too much. Somebody had given me it, and it really puts you into like just enjoy, like when you're eating, just thinking about the food, or when you're doing the dishes, just think about cleaning the dishes. Like stop letting everything else overwhelm and take over you.
Stop. I mean, this is another one of my coaster of depression. It's like noticing, okay, alcohol, the obvious one, podcasts, hate to say it. But I love podcasts and I get information addicted, and I have moments where if I'm going further, if I'm trying to get away from the moment and away from my thought, and I'm like, the moment's going to be unbearable, and it never actually is. Sometimes I'm bored, sometimes I'm verklempt, whatever.
Right.
But I start overdosing on information.
Yeah.
Too many podcasts, too much humor, too much whatever it is.
Yeah.
Instead of even listening to music is infinitely but when I go for a run and I don't take my headphones, I have no music. I have like silence does it. It's so delicious, and there's so much in there, and I can tell when I'm in a depressive trough because I start the habits of like filling up every moment with some kind of noise or some kind of thought coming.
And it's cyclical, man. It keeps going and going and going and going and going. So if you can fill it up, man, your brain just plays it over and over again. It's funny. The other day I was running and my headphones died, And I got angry for like a second because I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? And then I really just enjoyed, I was coming back home. So I was already like on the journey back. And I was like, oh, this is actually like, I haven't listened to birds or like just the road or anything else in like a really long time. It was a nice run back. It was a nice run back without headphones. And I was like, why don't I just do this more often? It was weird.
It's so great. And there's so much that come out of it too. I mean, that's the other thing. When I listen to too much, I'm not writing anymore. There's a
Oh.
point of input that that really feeds me. And I like to also, I mean, depending on what I'm enough of a nerd that like I like researching. So like if I'm thinking about a concept, I like
Oh,
to
yeah.
like go into it. But if I'm always just taking in a ton of stuff, then like instead of running and just being to begin with and then having songs like things spontaneously emerge out of that
Yeah.
silence. And
I agree.
if I don't
Like-
have silence, I don't get that.
When I'm biking, I have the same thing where like I swear to God, half of my ideas come up when I'm like riding my bike, and I'll have to like, you know, make a note or like, you know, thankfully that's the coolest thing about like some technology stuff. Like it's distracting, but at the same time, if I'm biking, I can just be like, take a note or whatever, think of this. But it's great. I go for a bike ride, new ideas, things come to me, people watching as I'm passing by everything, and it's awesome to actually kind of get that kind of input. I have a quote that I don't know. Do you like Vonnegut?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay, great. So that's one of my favorite quotes by him is, I urge you to please notice when you're happy, or exclaim or murmur or think at some point, if this isn't nice, I don't know what is. I think about that all the time. I try to think like when I'm having a sandwich with a friend, or like, you know, same thing you were saying about a cup of coffee. I have it engraved on a bag that I used to travel with, because I used to think like, how lucky am I to be able to do stand up and to be in, you know, middle of the country or whatever. But sometimes you get a hotel, something doesn't go your way, but I would have that on the duffel bag. So I'd get in my hotel room if I was a little like being a little brat about something. I'd look at that and I'd be like, all right, relax. Like
great.
you're on the road, you're doing what you love, you're in a hotel room, you know.
Everything is beautiful and nothing hurts. Right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So true, man.
Oh, that's what book is that from? I don't
It's
remember
from oh my God, he wrote a book of essays that came out in like 2000. Yeah, it was good Lord, it's called Man Without a Country.
Need to read Man Without. I think I have that and I haven't read
Oh,
it.
it's so good.
I reread. Man, I reread a bunch this year.
Oh, of his? My friend and I started a Vonnegut book club because we were like, let's go beginning to end, dude. We're gonna read them all, and I have most of them. I think I was missing like a couple random ones that I didn't even realize until we started like going through them, and then I just bought them. I was like, well, Amazon's there for
Galapagos.
everything.
This was a good year for Galapagos.
Absolutely. Yes. Totally. That was, I mean, he's so great. And his did you read his book that came out on writing? I mean, obviously
I
it's
didn't read that. I
posthumously,
haven't
but somebody...
read any nonfiction, but I've read just about every novel.
There's another great quote of his that I really like too, and I drew a picture to go with it. I want to do something with it, but it's I thought this was great too, and it I think it lends itself to any entertainer, music or writer, or whatever. But it's, I wanted all things to seem to make some sense, so we could all be happy, yes, instead of tense. So I made up lies so they'd all fit nice, and I made this sad world a paradise. And I think about that all the time too, because I'm like,
Is that
why?
Like the Book of Bokonon, like
yes,
his first Calypso. Yeah.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, I was like, that sticks with me all the time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that you knew that.
Calypso.
Yeah. I'm so. Yeah. Oh God, I love Vonnegut. There's that documentary that came out. I don't know if you saw.
No.
On Hulu. Oh, you got to watch it, man. Really, really good.
Vonnegut.
Yep, on Vonnegut. It's a great. It's on. I think it's still on Hulu. It's really, really good. And the guy who, you know, what's cool about it? The guy who made it, you could tell he had like a serious level of appreciation for him. You know what I mean? It took some time to put together and for it to come out. And it's a really, really nice piece.
I mean, writing, it's funny. Like my writing is generally just, there are a few songs where you might be able to tell I like I'm mostly just really earnest. And it's my shtick, but but as a person, like I started reading Vonnegut in junior high.
Yeah.
And didn't get half of what was going on, and, you know, reread again in like my early 20s, and then came back even in the last. I started giving Vonnegut books to my daughters, and
nice.
and just saying it's like, oh, these ideas, you want to talk about dehumanizing technology, you
Oh
want to talk,
yeah.
God
Yeah.
bless you, Mr. Rosewater, and
Yeah.
like you want to talk about a dehumanizing world. You want to talk about, labor fairness, like what we do when we've made people rendered them useless, and
Yeah.
how do you like these books were so ahead of their time. They were
Yes.
Yeah.
so crazily on the mark. And like I loved turning my daughters in the last few years on to Vonnegut. It's such
Yeah.
pleasure. But if finding like in my late 20s, I'd never really listened to Randy Newman. And like I got turned on to Randy Newman, and it's like, oh my God, he's Vonnegut in music. He's like,
So true.
you can do this in songs. Like I had
Yeah.
no idea that you could write like that.
That's a
And
great point. I
oh,
never,
he
I didn't
blew
realize,
my
but
mind.
it is one of those things that I thought the same thing when I was younger. I did not appreciate Randy Newman as much as I should have.
Well, it's weird because you hear some of those songs, and if you don't get, I mean, I used to think that Morrissey wasn't like somebody's finally like, no, Morrissey's funny, and then I started listening to the Smiths again, and I'm like, oh, now I get it,
Yeah.
right? And but he's got his issues,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah, totally.
realizing he was funny really changed it, and I just remember like, I don't get this. It didn't
Yeah.
make sense to me, and then I started realizing how brave and smart and wry and like how he would just dig in the night. I mean, even his big problem, right, with songs like Rednecks, which people were taking as a racist anthem,
Yes.
the very people he was kind of mocking in it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but even in that song, he manages to drive, it's like the last verse, right? Where it's like, and using language that nobody should listen to that song because the language in it is not allowed anywhere anymore.
Yeah.
but talking about like sticking it to the north, sticking it to the south side of, and like you're listening to the song as a Yankee thinking like, oh, we're so much better than the
Oh yeah.
Southerners, and getting so smug, and then at the end he's just, no, you're a fucking racist too,
Yep.
and he's just like, ah, it just slams
Yeah.
you in the face with it, and you're like, no, nobody escapes.
I know.
It's
Yeah.
so good. It's so deft.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never
Yeah.
thought of it that way though either when I was younger. I didn't quite get. I feel the same way. Didn't quite get it. Didn't land until much later. I don't know why Vonnegut did at the time. I feel like I really understood what I was reading when I was reading it back then, but for some reason, again, the Randy Newman, and you're right about Morrissey being funny and all that stuff. I don't know if I absorbed it in the same way. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, Vonnegut is like, he almost writes even his sentence structure. I mean, he's like the opposite of like a Martin Amis or a Salman Rushdie, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like there's
Yeah.
nothing chocolatey about his prose.
Right.
His sentences are really terse. I mean, he has a great vocabulary.
Hmm.
So, I was learning my vocab words, but his writing is really simple. And even at
Yeah.
the beginning of a story, he tells you everything that's going to happen in the first chapter. Doesn't tell you exactly why, but it's like this weird narrative thing. Like, by the way,
Yeah.
here's what happens.
Right. Right.
Everyone dies.
Yeah.
Okay, now we can keep going and tell you like the important details. Like, but it's
That's
almost
another
like
thing too, though. When he does stuff like that, you're like, this has got to be good. He already gave it away, and you just keep going through it. You're like, that's a great trick.
it's a great trick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
How often do my political views make their way into its music? Well, I don't know. I mean, once again, political views, it's like I know there are parts of my political views that are really based on my own confirmation bias, my upbringing. I used to go, canvassing. My mom is always been deeply politically active. We would go door to door for Democratic candidates. It's like I re-registered Green after in Clinton's second term when he started bombing civilians in Iraq.
Yeah.
I was like, "Fuck you, dude,"
Right.
and went back to the Democratic Party to vote for Obama because I thought I really wanted him to win that election. And so I'm not a strict partisan, but I've been kind of a lifelong liberal,
Hmm.
and I'm aware that I'm probably blind to certain things, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like my political leanings, I don't want to be a partisan, and I feel like there's such a binary attitude towards politics right now that you're this or you're that, and
Yeah.
I don't feel, like I'm just a joiner.
Hmm.
Um, and once again, if I have to choose between the the incredibly poor choices we
Yeah.
have,
You're like, gun to
I'm
my head.
gun to my head, I'm choosing the Democrats. Like,
Right.
mostly.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have to. In the elections I've generally voted in, it tends to be I prefer their candidates. I like to
Sure.
think I'm more about the candidate than the party. But so I feel like I feel like my morality makes it into everything I write, or my outlook, makes it into everything I write to some degree. And once again, I don't, uh, and I'm actively curious about where I'm wrong. Before I came on at the very top of this show, you were talking about having to buy a shirt at, a thrift store. And I was thinking of my
Yeah.
girls who are like, Dad, buying new clothes is immoral. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
There's so much waste. It's so like, why, and if you're buying a technical pair of shoes or something,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and I get, but my kids are like, new clothes are sinful, like they're
Wow.
literally killing the earth.
Yeah.
They're the poor wages, poor, it's like, don't support that industry. And so I think a lot about like, what are the things I'm blind to that somebody's going to look at me the same way I look at, some old white dude on the golf course making off color, making racist jokes,
Hmm.
thinking they're hilarious. And I go, dude, history has passed you by.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and my grandkids are going to go, you shopped at Trader Joe's? All that plastic waste? You bought a fucking plastic wrapped
Yeah.
thing? Like, you asshole.
Right.
You killed the coral reefs. How could you have done, like, some of it I already know.
Yeah.
Like by being a part of this society, like, where are my blind spots? What do I decide not to think about? Like, and so, with all of that, I'm sure there are things that I think are moral that are going to be looked at as horrific in the future. Or I
Yeah.
think of, even the people who were, running the Indian schools in the United States, right?
Hmm.
Where they were the progressives of the time, and they were like, no, 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 kill the Indians, save the man. Where their culture is going to go extinct anyway. Put them in these
Right.
schools and take away all their culture. And once they've taken Christ, they're as worthwhile a soul as any white man. And those were the progressives.
Right.
And they
Right.
were really wrong, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
at least they weren't saying, no, they're not human beings. Kill them all or enslave them.
Right. Right.
But I'm sure there are things that I think are really righteous. And so I want to have a questioning of where I'm blind, where I'm wrong. I like that I have friends who are far to the right of me,
Yeah.
and who, in the earlier talk about, misinformation, whatever, like, they're getting me to at least question, am I just taking everything I'm taking in about, COVID in this situation, and like, what's propaganda, what's not propaganda?
Sure.
How much of it am I following blindly because it fits my narrative? And how much of it,
Right.
am I actually really, it's getting me to question, just as I'm asking them to question their sources and
Hmm.
to question how much of it fits their narrative. I mean, of course I'm right, but it's getting me to question but it causes me to ask more good questions about
Yes.
like what I take for granted. And I never want to lose that, because I am afraid. I walk around terrified that there are things that I think I'm right about that I'm actually just dead wrong on.
Oh yeah. You should always have your bullshit checked. You know what I mean? And
Always have
if
your
you're not
bullshit
prepared to have it, it's crazy. I do like, there's some part of internet discourse that I find useful even as a writer. You know what I mean? Because if I post something that I feel really strongly about, whether it's political or whether it's something going on in the news, and if I'm too afraid to have it contested, then I don't belong having that opinion or posting it or sharing it publicly. And when people do, and I engage in it, it's kind of funny because people are like, why are you engaged? Well, sometimes I like to engage as long as sometimes it doesn't stay civil, but when it does stay civil, I appreciate it because I'm like, fuck, this guy actually has a legitimate, a good comeback or a good point. But then I go, now I got to look at it further. And the reason it causes me to go deeper into it is because somebody has a contrasting point of view. And I don't know, they made a good point and I have to figure it out. And I think that's how you either solidify your response or realize it's held, it's like Jenga. You're like, oh, this is really held together pretty shabbily. And it's because of, like you said, your kind of
and
point of view.
yeah, I asked in trying to confront my prejudices during the Trump era and during lockdown. I at some point was like, hey, if there's any conservatives left, I want to talk to you about like how you see the world and ask you. I don't have a lot of super conservatives. I have like a lot of libertarians in my circle.
Yeah.
And we can have big talks about everything,
Right.
but not like straight out like Trump supporter. Like, and I'm like, I'm trying to understand because from my perspective, like I don't get it.
Yeah.
And had a few conversations, and some of them were really interesting and really great, and some of them at the end of it, it's like, oh no, you're actually just really privileged and racist, and you don't see it as that. You see it as that's the shape of the world, but actually, from my point of view, I'm no closer to you because you just said a few things that really revealed something to me. And it wasn't everybody. It was a handful where it was just like, oh, we've reached this axiomatic difference where what we think is the baseline of fact or truth, like where we're not finding common ground. And it's a funny thing because like with my old band, a lot of people thought we were Christians. Used a lot of Christian imagery in songs. And, I went to Camp Young Judea as a kid. My dad took me to the Zen Priory for meditation courses, like gave me Idris Shah books on Sufism. Like that was my spiritual upbringing. And so, and so I ended up, when Toad was out, ending up having dozens and dozens of great friendships and conversations with people who are evangelical Christians who were surprised to find out but learned how to talk with people on the right in what I thought was like, oh, let's find our common ground. Like we want fair play. We want, it's like, what do you want? You want your kids to be safe. You want less crime. You want fair play. Everybody wants a system that they think is equal, where you do your day's work and you're, paid fairly for it, and somebody's not ripping you off on the side. And we have different narratives on who's ripping off who. Yeah. But we all want a fair and equitable society, mostly.
Agreed.
And I've found those conversations that get harder and harder to come to, that common ground. That part I can get to, but the basic facts of what the threats are, or what the perceived threats are, those are getting wild. They're more divergent and really hard to find common ground on.
And it's because of, everybody it's because we're a very bizarrely fractured society, and social media does. We have the group on one side who just loves murder podcasts, and that's it, and they want to absorb it, which I got into a little too deeply too. But it's so true. It's like, oh my god, everybody's fractured and has their weird conspiracy theories and shit. It's weird. We all want to get to the same place. We just now think there's a million different ways to get there, and some of them are batshit crazy. And you're like, well, I don't know if I can help you.
I was just trying to find methods of having conversation because I want to get these people. Like that's the thing. Like there's differences. Like I feel like, old school Republicans. I mean, in the same way that Big Lebowski, right? Say what you want about the tenets of National Socialism. At least it's an ethos,
right?
Fucking nihilists. And I feel like there's this thing with Trumpism where, like, I can't find my way into the logic of it, like what I would have to believe that. And I felt like, kind of Reagan Republicans, Bush Republicans, whatever, like that I could get through a conversation into a mind game of understanding the cognitive, okay, if you believe this, then this makes sense to me. I can understand that position. And I've just really had difficulty being able to do the mind exercise of the belief system because the belief system seems incoherent to me. And so, but I actually want to be able to do that because these are good people. Like I actually believe that most people are, Anne Frank, right? And
Right.
so I'm trying to figure out how these, where is, I don't know, just how it can work. Like, because then I can be less reactive. I can be more useful in the world if I'm able to talk to all these people who I'm supposed to not be able to talk to anymore.
Agreed.
I
I
was
feel the
really
same
trying to
way.
find the tools. Yeah.
Yeah, connection is important, and understanding and communication. I like communication no matter what it is. Like I mean, I talk, we both do it in some, in different forms or whatever, but that's it. That's how we get to know people. That's how we break down barriers. That's how we do that kind of stuff, is through communication. But it does get, like, sometimes it's cathartic, because I was doing a show at the Improv in DC, and somebody in the audience, this is like in the middle of Trump's presidency, and they actually just admitted at one point where we were talking about it. She's like, I voted for Trump. She was from Texas. And then she was like, but my whole company did. We did it as like a literal group. And I was like, well, then, why? And she's like, I regret it. She's like, we did it for the money. Our company was going to get a huge tax break, and we thought this guy was going to be good for business, and we were wrong, and he's not. And that blew me, it blew me away, because I was just like, holy shit. Like, I didn't even know you could have that. Because again, this was in like the very middle, I guess, of his presidency. So no one was admitting shit at this point. Like, it wasn't even that there was blood in the water and he was maybe going to lose or hadn't done anything,
Crazy.
Super crazy. Yeah, which is hard to really pin down. But I was going to say he hadn't done anything super crazy yet. And then I was like, God, that's a really wide spectrum. I don't even know if I could say that sentence out loud.
Once again, it just normalized a degree of behavior that would have been the end of any other politicians. And I think a lot of people also just liked, if you think that everything is falling apart, I think there were people who are all like wanting a vandal in there. And it's like, yes, he's an asshole. Yeah, and no, and he lies all the time, but I know he's lying all the time, and I want it all to burn down. That is like the one thing that I can actually get. Supporting Trump is like, I want it all to burn down.
Yep. Oh, I know people who
that
did
makes
it
sense to me.
Yeah,
but Jesus sent him to save us all. That I'm no.
Exactly. Don't understand that, but I understand people voting for him out of spite. Like, oh, really? Okay. Well, now we'll see. Now you'll get what you deserve, and you're like, wow,
all good. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Checks out completely.
Maybe Jesus is an anarchist, so he knew what he was doing.
Hey, Jesus, he kind of was,
right?
Yeah,
to shake the system.
Absolutely.
Oh man.
Do we have any more questions from the audience?
Somebody actually just said, did I just hear Glenn say his old band?
I might have. We're not young anymore.
You got that Paul Rudd thing going on though, too. Though I mean, you're kind of ageless.
Yeah, it's the adrenochrome.
I was gonna say it's you, Paul Rudd, Rhett Miller. Who the hell else is young forever?
Hey, put me in with Rhett.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm lucky. I got a decent metabolism. I figure I have the eye bags are where it shows, and then I'm just gonna, I don't know. I'll turn to sand in like 8 years. It'll go quick.
Sand is a pretty cool way to go. Not gonna lie, you get to be glass one day. If the fires keep up, you'll get to be glass, and it's beautiful.
How fun!
But fun.
Thank you. My old band. I don't know. It's. Did I say my old band? I may have.
Yeah, you may have.
My old band. We've been together, since I was 15. So my old band. Yeah.
Oh,
I don't have a new band, but
no. Do you want to tell us any more? Or do you want to get to the big three?
Yeah, let's give them the big three.
We'll give them the big three. All right, you ready for this?
Okay.
Big three questions. This is how we wrap up every show. Brace yourself. Favorite color? No, I'm just kidding. Imagine they were like the easiest questions in the world. If you can go back in time and talk to your younger self, give yourself a piece of advice that would help you today, what would it be?
Oh, be way more grateful all the time.
Nice.
Like I got set up early I had easy success early in life, and it took me a long time to like get over that. And and so more gratitude, and yes, even though it's all fake and it's all going to crash, still put your money in the stock market.
Perfect. Second question is, what had to end in your life, good or bad, that led you to where you are today?
A lot had to end. I mean, I think the biggest and hardest thing that ended was my family as it was my kids. Like there were my kids getting older. Like there's a part of me, and I know there were places where like, my first wife and I like where we were really compatible as friends and good people and got together early and there were ways in which we weren't matched that were difficult throughout, but losing like that sense of home that I thought I would never lose, and that time when my kids were really young, and like and I realize people are capable of abandoning their children or not paying attention to them or these things, but I
Sure.
loved being a father of younger kids. I just loved it. It was the best.
Mm.
And I loved that when they got older, we were the house their friends would come to. Like I loved that home
Yeah.
and the swirl of it and the just how much love was in there and how much difference in music, and it was just the best place.
Yeah.
And losing that, and once again David White talking about, right, grief is love plus time, right, in
Hmm.
whatever way,
Yeah.
the inevitable consequence of loving things deeply, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Not my kids growing away and moving out, my marriage ending, and it ended non-violently, and I'm no longer in that like, and it took so much for me to accept, and I kept to accept that those weren't going to be the happiest days of my life, and that I could choose to be as happy as that in different ways, and I could, and even that it could just be different. And even
Yeah.
recently to see like how fucking amazing my kids are, how inspiring they are, how much I love them, how much I'm happy with them, how much the way the family is changing. And even in the last months, just my daughter's working at a restaurant, and you know my fiance and I, we went to dinner with my ex at the restaurant my daughter's cooking at,
Oh,
with my,
nice.
and just thinking, I still have a family. I still have a fucking family, and it's beautiful. It's different, and my nieces, just turned 5, and my girls are gonna have kids, and like life is continuing. And I've been the guy who's been like holding on to what it used to be and unable to let what it's become come in,
Yeah.
and let that difference be okay. And like I'm finally going like, this is great actually,
Yeah.
and that my family's different now, and that it's
Hmm.
great. And I was holding on to that time so fiercely that I couldn't let what was actually happening in. So
Wow.
that was a long answer.
That
No,
was
that's
good.
great.
That was really good.
That was a great
Yeah.
answer. Uh, oh wow, I could have known it's ready to surrender.
That's
Yeah.
a lyric.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. That's a
Cast
good.
off your coat and shiver in the weather.
Yeah.
Like, we spend a lot of time. I mean, I think one of the worst things about, I don't know, worst thing, the hardest things about, this culture is that we're so comfortable.
Hmm.
And we kind of have the mythos of the idea of this is that you acquire enough and then you're done. And it's so hard to fight that idea of
Right.
you're supposed to get and store enough to last you the rest, and then go dormant and go into a retirement, which is, uh, not really it's just being entertained for the rest of your life.
Sure.
And one of the things I love about being an artist is there's no choice there. Like you're gonna die working,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because you have to. It's
Yep.
like, and so the like, it's like the Rilke, letters to a young poet. It's like, why are you doing this? Do you have to? Do you wake up each day knowing that there is nothing else in your life and that you would sacrifice any, like,
Yep.
Yeah.
and so that uh that surrender, and to not seek comfort but to seek presence.
Mm.
I talk about this with yoga. It's one of the things I love about yoga is that it had taught me, and other things that I don't talk about publicly, have taught me how to gain gain happiness by being uncomfortable, and gain happiness by being in presence at my edge. And I talked before about it in the live cast I do, but like there's something about Warrior 3 where if you're not paying attention, you're going to fall over.
Yeah.
Like it takes everything you have in terms of strength, and there's always a way to go into it deeper. It takes
Right.
all your balance, all your attention, and all your strength at any given moment to do that. And you're in the present, and it's really, really hard, and it's gleeful to have a moment where no matter how hard it is, you're not anywhere else. Like those are
Yeah.
the best. And for me, the flow state of singing can get me there. You know, the best thing on stage, another thing I've said before, is not like having the spotlight on you and having everybody see you.
Mm-hmm.
It's that you disappear into the song and you're not even there anymore.
Right.
And
That's
I'm
great,
assuming as a comedian, at the flow state, the best moments are where you have no idea what's fucking coming out of your mouth.
Absolutely.
But you're riding a wave of energy,
Yep.
and your intelligence and your capacity is honed enough. The tool of your mind and your craft is good enough that you can disappear into it.
Yeah, man.
And it's just letting it go through you. It has nothing to do with you.
Absolutely. You just get out of the way, and then it happens, and it's one of those things that keeps you going back to do it again and again and again. Especially do you find when you were younger and you were performing and you get into those states, even though maybe you wouldn't hit it? Because when I was doing stand-up, it was like hit and miss. You know what I mean? You're figuring it out in real time. But I would have those sets that were just like you described, where you would lose yourself in the audience, in the moment, in creative process all at once when you're on stage. And then you'd get off and you'd be like, I don't know what that was, but I need it to happen again. And that was beautiful. And then you chase it. And that's what used to keep you going. Still keeps me going.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I was on stage and that was it. I was like, oh, this is like for a long time when I was like struggling to figure it out and figure myself out and find my voice, I had oddly enough, it happens a few stand-ups where your first set's great. And then like as best as you can be at that time, but it did go like oddly well, and then immediately bombed like the next day. And I was like, oh, this is horribly painful and I should drive into traffic. But like I for the longest time I was like, oh, I remember how good I felt that first night. I would like to do that again. And then you just try to get as good as you can.
And it's a weird, I'm like comedy, man. I just, the great thing with being a musician is that you can do a little bit of stand up, and then if you bomb, you just play a song and you reset. It's like, boop, reset. And then,
that's so great.
And then you can try again, and like you're not like, if you're a comedian, it's like all you got is your next joke, and you're like, digging down.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, that's always fun.
It's so much easier to like we can play funny, but we always have a fallback. It's yeah.
I never thought of that. That's pretty great. Now I'm really jealous. I was jealous of musicians beforehand because I think every stand-up secretly wants to be in a band or have somebody behind them or some kind of instrument to play. We talk about it. I wish I could play something. I have a banjo hanging on my wall. It's beautiful there. It's where it's gonna stay because I suck. But yeah, I wish I could do it. I love all the guitars behind you right now. Like, but that's like
that it's there. I love playing them.
Yeah.
Who am I thinking? I'm thinking, and musical comedy is just such a weird like.
Stephen Lynch is great. You know Stephen Lynch?
I don't think I do know.
He's oh my God, he's probably one of my favorite like musical comedians.
Okay.
Like he had a Comedy Central special when I was in like high school, I think, or whatever. But he was funny because I remember him talking about it where he's like, I can't believe I have a Comedy Central Presents. I don't really consider myself a stand. Like he's not a traditional stand-up, but he wrote these hilariously funny songs. He could actually sing. He did the Wedding Singer when they were on Broadway. Like they picked him to do the Adam Sandler role.
Tell me his name again.
Stephen Lynch.
Stephen Lynch. I'll find him. Like for me,
so
like I want to like more musical comedy than I do.
Mm-hmm.
I like Bo Burnham, but I love Flight of the Conchord.
Oh
like,
God, so good.
Yeah. It's just
the show them so brilliant.
Everything about it is so insanely good.
Yes.
And I hear a lot of musical comedy. I'm like, it's cute. But their songs, like everything about it was just brilliant and layered and hilarious and just really good songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
lyrically great.
It's just really good. And Bo Burnham, I think he has that too. Like
probably. Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel the same way.
Something in the flavor of Flight of the Conchords, though, is like the pinnacle for me. I've just never heard since Tom Lehrer. There has not been better.
Yeah. Oh, That's a great endorsement. Holy shit.
Hey,
Um,
yeah. So second question. I'm
That was
taking
the second
forever.
question.
Hey, you knocked out
no.
two.
That was it. That was it. And we got the third
Okay.
one, which is a ridiculous fun question. It's my favorite
Yeah.
question because it ties into the show. If this was a genuine dystopia, even worse than we're in now, if this was a genuine dystopia, aliens, zombies, or, you know, comet, whatever it is, what would be your epic death? How would you want to go out?
Oh, what would be my epic death? I mean,
And keep in mind, this is how our artist is going to draw you on the cover of the podcast episode. So,
okay. I am unsure. We're talking the good, bloody, visceral, not like
yeah, goof, whatever, however you want to go
Whatever
out.
you want. There's no limitations in this.
For instance, if
dystopia.
you want, I'll give you an example. If you want an example.
Yeah, please.
Sure. So Colin Mockery was on, and he said, and I quote, I would like an alien race to need my sperm enough to where they make love to me until I'm a husk. And I was just like,
Wow.
great. And so we drew him in bed holding an alien, cuddling clearly after sex, which is how he would have wanted it.
I am trying to think. I dated a woman for a while whose honest answer to how would you want to die? She said, eaten by a shark. Just like, or a lion. Like, she'd want to go out struggling against a beast more powerful than herself and feel every bit. And I'm like,
Wow.
I am such a no. I want to go in my mind. I want to have like, you know, whatever great little 5-MeO experience as I'm kind of expanding into the all. Like, you know, just nice, easy. Tell everybody I love them before I go. Make sure that everything's taken care of. Like, I don't want a dramatic death. So, I'm simultaneous, like trying to think of what would be the most entertaining to draw, and then realistically going, I don't want anything that's actually going to be that painful.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't want to die with great pain.
I already have an image of you.
Final apocalypse.
Yeah, I already have an image of you now with as just like a head, just your head, and saying "I love you," and then what's coming out of it is probably a little bit of everything, a little bit of joy, a little bit of alien stuff, a little bit of whatever's going on because it's all inside your head.
Yeah, I would like to die in a spiritual ecstasy of becoming. Just float into the all and the infinite seamlessly.
Nice.
Kind of like Powder, when Powder transcends like his physical being and you just dissipate.
Oh,
There you go.
yeah.
It's why like my favorite song of the last 2 years is No Hard Feelings by the Avett Brothers. And
love
when
that
my body
song.
won't hold me anymore and it finally sets me free. When the sun hangs low in the west and the light in my chest won't be kept at bay any longer.
That's great. Yeah.
So so I guess if we're gonna get into it's an apocalypse and we're gonna talk aliens since we've gone the alien route and they're doing all those, you know, it's the end of a Marvel movie where everybody's just got like special effects coming out of their hands. And it's like the blue special effect versus the green special effect, and you know the special effects are fighting it out.
Right.
So I just want to have. I want to have found a relic that would then that I would somehow have like, you know, I pick it up and it goes and transforms me into a fighter on one of the alien sides, and everybody is undergoing similar transformations, and my special effect is pouring out of me, and their special effect comes in, and some part of my internal consciousness is going, this is the end of the world. I'm going to surrender myself to peace. I'm not going to die in violence and confrontation, and I will welcome their energy into me as I put my energy out there. But my energy is going to be love, and I will be consumed in a ferocity of love.
Nice.
And just kind of cease to exist. And the other one, you know, I don't think it'll be like, yeah, I got him, but then it'll go like, he was a nice guy. I want him to think I was, you know, was he really the enemy? I don't know if he was the enemy.
Yeah.
I think he was just another part of this
me.
beautiful universe, another part of me. There was no separation between us.
Oh, that's great. That's deep. That's the deepest answer we've ever had.
I think so.
No,
Yeah,
it's
they do.
just fluffery. I just want the picture of my. I like that.
That's awesome. We'll do that.
Awesome.
Okay,
Uh,
thank
Make it
you.
happen.
Yeah.
Just working
Dude,
on it.
this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been a blast.
Thank you.
I hope you had a
It's
good
been
time.
such a pleasure. I had a great time, and now I'm going to go eat a salad.
Oh, nice. I'm gonna go eat
Nice.
too. I don't know what I'm gonna eat, but a salad sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
I like the happy food
I've been
dance.
told they saved some for me.
Oh,
I like
fantastic.
food a lot.
Oh, me
Yeah.
too. Absolutely.
I enjoy it. I'm plant based right now, so it's I'm in a weird quasi state that I'm like I'm just trying to
Nice.
find the best of strictly the plant based world.
Hey man, the plant based is great. My fiance, she's basically like vegan plus occasional fish. That's the one animal
Pescatarian.
protein she'll
Yeah,
ever
yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Pescatarian, but and we have the farmers market in town is great, and so we just like, and I like to cook, and so I cook what we can eat when her son's around. Like sometimes my girl works at the grass-fed organic meat stand at the farmers market, like local and as sustainable as that gets. So bring that home. But so we eat mostly vegetables at home, and it's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a thing of like people serve vegetarian food as if everything should be a meat substitute, and like keeping the mindset of like, that the main dish is always meat, or if it's not, then you need a tofu cutlet or and there's like, I don't know, vegetarian food gets a bad rap.
It
I
does.
actually think
Agreed.
Anthony Bourdain was right about that like there's this, it's anti-meat as opposed to being pro-vegetable. And
Yeah.
when you go pro-vegetable, it's on.
Yeah.
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 I'm
So
actually
it's-
my wife's birthday's coming up. We always do a 3-star Michelin, like as a nice night out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 11 Madison Park just turned
They've gone all
plant-based.
plant. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm super excited.
Have
That's the one this
fun.
year.
Please get back to me and let me know how it is. I'm curious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like it's saying fiance.
I am.
It's a fun word
It's
to
a
say.
good- it's a great word to say.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I know. I was doing plant-based for a little bit and then fell off the wagon, but I tried to avoid eating any kind of like pork, any kind of, shit like that. As if I'm doing some justice.
Assalamu
in not
alaikum,
doing-
John.
Yeah. Well, God bless you. And no, I know. But it is weird. I love I did the fish thing too. I did the plant, and then I would be like, oh my God, I forget that fish were like actually, I don't know why. In my brain, I'm like, they're not real meat. They're just living in the ocean.
It's Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
They don't have any feelings.
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay.
Oh, that got me. Oh, that's great, man. Dude, well, thanks so much, dude. I really
Yes,
appreciate
thanks
it.
again,
Yeah.
man.
Absolutely. Take care.
Enjoy
of
your
yourself.
salad.
Definitely. Looking forward to hanging soon. Have a great
Yeah.
one.
All right.
Peace, man.
Thanks.
Night.
Night.
Bye.
Dystopia Tonight.